software. If you have any questions, as I said before, please send them through the webinar system, and we will try to answer them on the audio portion. I'm going to dive right in real quick before we get to the software, just by talking about the costs of long-term care insurance. I've talked to probably a few hundred agents about how they sell long-term care insurance, and a lot of them talk about how the premiums are so high they're losing sales. And we found that people that use our software are going about it a completely different way. They start by showing why the person needs it, and then later, after the person is sold on the idea of getting some type of long-term care insurance, then they start talking about products and premiums. But it's sort of the cart before the horse if you talk about the products before talking about why you need it. And so we're just going to go through this today. The costs of long-term care. One resource that's out there, if you're not aware of it, is the American Association for Long-Term Care Insurance. It's at AALTCi.com. They offer a great little resource guide called the Source Book for Long-Term Care Insurance Information. And I highly recommend it. It's full of facts and figures. And a few of the facts and figures that I pulled out just for this webinar is on the average cost of the three main types of long-term care. We've got home care, average cost being about $16,000 a year. There's other facts and figures in there about hourly costs as well as the number of hours per year. We have assisted living, average cost being about $35,000 a year. And then we have the full nursing home costs. A private room, it says the average cost is about $75,000 a year. And a semi-private room, it says the average cost is about $66,000 a year. And that information came from the MetLife Mature Market Institute October 2006 survey of costs. So you can see, as you all know out there, it's very expensive to handle these situations. So let's go right into the software. We're going to use this information in the program. And what we're going to do first is build a simple retirement plan for a typical client. I'm going to go ahead and close this file. This was a sample that I had open. And we're going to start from scratch. And it'll only take us about 10 minutes to do so. Many of the people on this webinar already have our software and are familiar with how to use it, as well as how to create a new client. I'm going to go through that real quickly. It'll take about 2 minutes. I'm going to create a new client file, and then we'll dive right in building their retirement picture, and then at the end I'll show you how these costs will vaporize their nest egg in pretty short order. Okay, let's do a LTCi sample file. We've got John, and let's say he was born in 1950. And we've got Susan, and let's just give her the same birth year for now, just to make things simple. All the rest of the information is completely optional. I'll just save this to my hard drive. Okay. Let's start with John on the lower left here. He's 56. He's going to retire at 65. Let's say that he's making, I don't know, $85,000 a year. And let's say his income goes up a couple of percent a year. And let's see, how much has he saved already? Tax deferred investments. That'll include their 401ks and IRAs and investments like that. I'm going to put that he's got $400,000 saved. And let's say that he's saving about $6,000 a year. And let's say that his employer is matching half of that. So I'm going to say he's getting $3,000 a year from his employer. As for our investment returns, I'm just going to keep it simple for now. Let's say he has a 7% before retirement, let's say that he has a 6% return during retirement on those investments. Let's also give him some taxable investments. Let's say he's got about $225,000 in taxable mutual funds, maybe some index funds, maybe some stocks. I just want to put in some basic data so we can look at a picture. And as you notice while we're going through this, those of you that already use the software know what's going on. If you have not used our software, you can see it in the background building this retirement picture. And I'm going to describe what this does in just a second. As far as the taxable investments, let's use the same returns, 7% and 6%. Okay. Let's skip the tax-free investments. We can enter those if you wanted to. Typically that would be like a Roth IRA or maybe some tax-free bonds or muni bonds or something. For Social Security, let's kind of be conservative. Let's say they're going to get $15,000. And let's say he's going to get that starting at 65. We need a cost of living adjustment on that, so I'm going to do that real quickly. Under Settings, Social Security, I'm going to give him a 3% cost of living adjustment. The 20-year average for the Social Security cost of living adjustment is about 3%. You can find that information on the ssa.gov website. And just for grins, I'm going to give him a small pension, just so we can see that on the screen as well. $12,000. Okay, so we've gone through John. We've entered some basic information. We built a basic picture up here. I'm going to go over to Susan's tab. We can do the same for her. Actually, I'm going to change her retirement age just to sync up the two to the same year. And as far as her investments go, let's say she's got $75,000 saved, and let's give her the same returns. I'm going to give her 7% and 6% in retirement. And then we're going to move on to Social Security. And let's give her a benefit as well. I'm just being conservative, making up these numbers. Okay, let's move on to other assumptions. This is where we put in our retirement income needs, our income goal. And let's say that they need about $65,000 a year to live on. And we'll use a 3% inflation rate. And we can adjust their tax returns. Taxes before retirement. You can change the ones during retirement. I'm just going to put in some numbers here. Okay, now we're ready to talk about the retirement income graph up here. This is the picture we built. This is the visual picture of their retirement. John and Susan, first year of retirement, they're going to need $84,810. That's in this light blue box right up here at the top. Goal plus expenses. That's their inflated retirement income goal that we've entered right here, and at this 3% inflation rate. When they're 65, that's how much they're going to need. We haven't entered any special expenses yet, and that's what the plus expenses is for. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, the year they turn 65, where's their income going to come from? They're going to get $23,000 from Social Security, $12,000 from a pension. The rest will come from the growth on their investments. They don't have to dip into their principal yet. The gray is trying to show you how they're going to start to eat into their nest egg. So the gist of this picture that we've seen here is that they're out of money at the red, first red that you see. Just roll your mouse over there. At 95, they're out of money. So this is the basic picture. You can build it in 5-10 minutes. It didn't take us very long to build the picture. And you can also see how inflation massively affects this picture. Let's go to a 3.5% inflation rate. they're out of money at 89. There are 4 different ways to model retirement income. I'm just using the simplest way, which is an income goal and inflation rate. There's a way to model periods. There's a way to do a total budget. There's a way to simply layer other expenses on top of the $65,000. Say they have college for their kids or grandkids, or they want to take some big trips or buy a second home, whatever it may be. You can layer those on top of this picture. And right now what I'm going to do is talk about the long-term care. At this point, you would talk to John and Susan about whether they have any long-term care insurance. They probably say no. You'll talk to them about briefly what it is. You don't want to get into products at this point. You want to talk about the costs of long-term care. And we already went over that on the slide, which I'll bring up again real briefly. And you may have a PowerPoint where you pull out some facts and figures. To this, I would probably add some information on how fast it's increasing each year. You could talk about costs in their specific area that you've gone and done some research on. That's a good idea. The more realistic the cost numbers are, the more likely they're going to buy into the concept that we're about to show. So at this point, they're self-insured. And we're going to go under the special expenses button on the right, and we're going to model some long-term care. You can call it a long-term care claim. You can call it a long-term care event. You can call it cost of long-term care. You can put the type that it is, whether it's nursing home care, assisted living, or whatnot. And what I'm going to do, since we already went over the costs, I'm going to go with the maximum cost that we saw in the slide that I prepared, and that's for a private room in a nursing home. Granted, that's the maximum cost, but the cost for that was $75,190. And in the LTCi source book, it says that that was a 1.5% increase over the prior year. But it also says that semi-private rooms are going up about 3.9% over the prior year, and there's a number of other cost factors in here. So just to be conservative, I'm going to put about 3 or 4%. Let's start with maybe 4% and see what that looks like. And the age to start the expense, the average actually is to go into a nursing home at age 83, sometime in their late 70s or 80s. I'm going to use 80 just for the purposes of this, and I'm going to put duration maybe 3 years, and we're going to inject this into the plan. So they're self-insured, they don't have any long-term care insurance, their money doesn't run out till they're 95, so they're feeling pretty secure about themselves. Now let's add this into the plan and see what it looks like. Okay, we've got this big spike here. That's the cost of the nursing home care layered on top of their regular financial expenses, and now they're out of money at 86. And at this point you can see that it's pretty much a catastrophic financial event. And if you show this to your clients, they're going to see visually, wow, I didn't realize it was going to cost that much. And you can roll your mouse over here. I'm going to look at age 79. They needed about $128,000 under the goal plus expenses. And then it jumps up to $324,000. So you can see that it ends up being about $200,000 a year by the time they reach age 80. And again, you can play with the numbers. If you go in here, a lot of people think that the cost of long-term care is actually going to go up 5-6% a year. So you can see that even if you change this to 5%, the picture will worsen even more. So at 84, they're out of money. So we all know that people buy homeowners insurance partly so that if you have a fire and your house burns down, you can have the insurance company pay to rebuild it. In this case, their nest egg is going to completely burn down, so to speak. It's going to get all used up on the long-term care. So what's the solution? The solution is the insurance. So let's show that. We're going to go under special expenses again. We're going to get rid of the cost of the long-term care. We're going to say that the insurance is going to cover them, and instead we're going to pay some premiums. Okay, and at this point you may get into a discussion about the cost. Before we do this though, I'm going to go back to the original plan just so you see what that looks like. Okay, they're out of money at about 95. Okay, so here's the normal plan with no long-term care insurance. We're going to go in there and we're going to start paying premiums. If somebody wants to punch into the webinar system what they think an average premium would be for this type of client in their area, I'll be glad to fill that in. Otherwise, I'm just going to make something up based on conversations I've had with other people. I'm going to say we need about 4,000 in premiums. And we're going to start that right now. I think John is 57, so we're going to start that right now. And the duration, we'll run that out till he's 80. Previously, when we started the long-term care event. So that would be 23 years. Let's say 24 years, just to make sure we cover it. And we're going to add that into the plan. Okay, so here's our visual picture. They're out of money at 92 and 93 because they're paying the premiums. So what it did was it shaved a couple of years off the back end. But let's look in here when they're 65, 66, 67. Did they starve? No. Did they run out of money? No. So even though $4,000 in premium sounds like a lot of money, and it is to a lot of people, it's going to insure them against a catastrophic loss. And it's going to give them the choice and the benefits. I'm not going into that today. But those of you that sell long-term care insurance, you probably talk about having the choice of what facilities you can go into and having more control over the type of care you have because of the insurance. So you would probably talk about that as well. But as far as the financial impact, it only took a couple of years off the back end of their retirement as far as their finances go. So that's the big overview. If you have any questions, can you put them into the question system in the GoToMeeting system? And if you do have any questions, I'll try and read those and address them best I can. As I said before, this system does not allow the attendees to talk on the webinar. We're going to change that for our other webinars, but for today, we didn't realize it until it was too late. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, let's see. We got some questions in here. Trying to get to it. Okay, the question that came in is whether we can save a part of this so we can show with and without insurance. There is a couple of ways to do that. One thing that you could do is start up 2 copies of the retirement planner. And some of you may not even be aware of this that already have the program. You could start up 2 copies and show side by side the 2 pictures. The other thing that you can do is simply you can show this one. What you can do is print just this graph. You could print it to PDF or to paper, and then go back to the cost of the long-term care. It just takes 2 seconds to put that in. The rest of the numbers, it really looks at the estimated dollar value. If it's 0, it's not included. So you can leave all these other numbers and just flip between the 2. We may at some point have a little checkbox on these lines to show which ones to include or not. That might be a useful feature that we're going to add. But for now, you can flip between the 2 just by changing the numbers. Or if you want to show them side by side, like I said, save the file of the 2 scenarios and open them side by side in the retirement planner. Just start up 2 copies. and that's a simple way to do it. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, we have one other question here. I'm going to address that in just a minute because it doesn't have to do with long-term care insurance. So what I'm going to do is wrap up the webinar related to the long-term care insurance sale. And if anyone has a question later on, please feel free to call myself, and I will give the phone number right after I end the recording on this. But I just want to thank you for your time and attending our webinar, and hopefully we'll be doing more of these to go in depth about various aspects of this software. And I just appreciate your time for today.